Doesn't go bad on us.
Illicit.
We're good. All right, world. It's everybody in the Save Jackson universe. I'm here with Miss Stacey Kirschten. Kirschten. Man, you would think that I could pronounce a name, and I'm terrible. So we'll give everybody a minute to get in the room. Kind of get some viewers going here. Get it shared to a few places. All right, here we go. How are you doing today?
You know, I'm holding right now. Hold them on.
I want to thank you for taking the time to do this. I know that it cannot be easy having these conversations.
The most necessary ones usually aren't.
Yeah, the tough ones are the hardest. Get this shared to one or two more places here so we make sure as many people see this as possible. I've got my family watching. I know we had some prayers sent to us. Some people wanted to just pray for us. Tell us thank you.
Mm-hmm. Thank you very much.
You know, just pray that we had the wisdom to give people a strong message today. And I don't want to get here and make this all about religion or anything, but we would definitely take some prayers anytime somebody wants to give them. All right, we got volume. We're good. So let's get this party started. So how we got to this point is, most of all of us have been following this since it happened, since the senseless murder of Chelsie. And this past week, the final suspect there was a plea deal put in place, and I guess there's finally some closure from a criminal legal standpoint.
Right.
So, I was just really disappointed in what I saw, and I kind of made an emergency video. It was like, we're going to talk about this right now. And that video ended up, and you ended up finding that video, reached out and just thanked me for doing it, and we bonded a friendship and decided that maybe getting an opportunity without a compressed interview for a news channel or a newspaper or anything, to give you a chance to tell the family side of the story, or your side of the story, and kind of what happened and how y'all dealt with that and the chaos that kind of was the justice system that led us to this point.
Okay. Yeah.
We're not here to sit in a hit piece on anything or anybody. We're just going to tell the story as it unfolded. We're going to ask questions. Y'all can ask some questions in the comments. If they make sense, we'll get to them. But I can't promise that we're going to be able to get to questions in the comments. But please share this. If you've got a teenage son, daughter, anything that's out, this would be a great opportunity to hear something from a real life parent who's lost a child to a senseless act of violence in Jackson. So why don't you tell us a little bit about Chelsie?
Well, as we were discussing before we started this, she was radiant, she was mischievous, she was, just vibrant and full of life. She was one of those people that just always was more concerned with your feelings more than her own.
Yeah.
And she was just the light. She was the one that lit up the room, and not because she was beautiful, she was gorgeous.
Yes.
But it was more, I don't think what people who didn't know her don't realize how goofy she was and how loving she was, and just, I wanted everybody smiling. She just, kind of wanted everybody smiling.
Yeah, so I've been following this for a while, and you had seen all of her friends share her photos, and I think that's one of the ways how somebody was received by their friends and family is how hurt they were when something happened.
It devastated so many people outside of the family, just devastated them, because if Chelsie had come in contact with them at some point in their lives, she brought something to them.
Yeah, I guess it's bittersweet.
Yes.
To see so many people affected.
You would be hard pressed to find anybody to say something truly ugly about Chelsea. Now, she had her moments, let me tell you.
I would be more concerned if she didn't.
But she she was just that kid. She was the baby of the family, and she let you know it too.
Yep.
Come Christmas time, she was counting those presents under the tree to see if she still got as many as the nieces and nephews. Her theory was that until I'm grown. I'm still the baby.
And I was going to ask you, she was the baby of the family, and she's survived by 2 sisters and a brother.
No, 1 sister. Well, yes, 2 sisters. I'm sorry.
Yeah.
She has a sister that lives in New York, and then she has her sister that lives here, and her brother that lives in West Virginia.
Gotcha. So everybody's kind of spread out a little bit, with the exception of the sister that's here.
Right.
Oh.
Right.
Man, that is I watched the video that her friend Brittany, I believe, put together. I found it on YouTube this morning, and I'm gonna tell you, it was a gut punch, and it's one of the reasons it took me a little while to get here. I had to kind of recompose myself. When you see somebody that's moved enough to make a beautiful video like that with a beautiful song,
but it just reminds me of how much she enjoyed life, and to hear her laugh. I think that was something. If you knew her, you can't get that laugh out of your head.
Yeah.
You just can't.
Yeah.
So it's priceless to me, and that Brittany was able to put that. And actually, one of the videos Chelsie actually made, and I didn't realize that until recently. So
like one of the videos that maybe
right.
One of the reasons we were a little past 2:15 getting on is me and Mama here. She was showing me all these videos. Still a proud parent. Holding on to those memories, and we talked about one of the. If you have to lose a child, that this is probably a unique time in the human existence for it to happen, because you have the social media to look back on, and
right.
to hear the laugh, you used to hear people talk about, I saved my mom's last voicemail,
right? Yeah,
stuff like that, and to be able to look back and kind of capture the essence of who somebody was,
it would just break me in two, I think, if I lost that.
Yeah. Well, we're going to make sure we get you help get you that all backed up.
Yeah.
So if you lose your phone, you never lose it.
So,
so
let me tell you, just to kind of give people an idea. Chelsea moved out. She moved out as soon as she turned 18. That lasted, I think, a month and a half.
My daughter's been making that same threat.
And I got a phone call, Mom, I need to come talk to you. And I said, you're not moving back in. She said, I'm outside, all my stuff's in a van. I was like, damn it.
I'm already here.
But so she stayed. So then, she worked at Twin Peaks, and she started, feeling the adult. She wanted to do the adulting thing. Mm-hmm. So she was bound and determined that at 20 years old, she shouldn't still be living at home. So I'm moving out. And she did. And, I don't think people realize when a child gets determined. She was working at Twin Peaks, and she worked her butt off. Now, she had fun. Don't get me wrong. She had fun along the way.
Yeah.
At the point that she died, Chelsea had, at a couple of times, she had tried to leave Twin Peaks, get what she thought, a legitimate job. People, you can't you can't bartend and waitress all your life, and I was one of those people, But so she had recently gotten a job at Tico's.
Oh, wow.
Fine dining. And so that night was her final night of training at Tico's.
I think I remember hearing that.
And she was so excited. She was so excited because at that point she was working 2 jobs, and she had just gone back and started her second semester at Holmes Community College. So I think that's important for me, because I want people to know that she was totally on her own. I did not support her.
Yeah.
She paid her bills. She, paid her rent. She went to work. She did her thing. And she had, finally kind of chosen a path that she was wanting to take.
What was she going to school to do? What was her kind of big picture?
She had talked about several things in high school and few years after, she had thought about doing TV reporting. She actually went to WDAM in Hattiesburg and did an internship for a week.
Oh, that's wild. That's cool.
But then now, at that point, she was talking about doing, chemical dependency counseling, addiction counseling, that kind of thing. And so to know her, you would know that that was right up her alley, because she was trying to help people, she was trying to fix people, or she wanted people to get better, be fixed, whatever. And she and I even had that conversation that I was afraid of that for her because I know how involved she got.
Yeah.
Because growing up, I would have to tell her, Chelsea, you need to start worrying more about yourself. And, because all these people that you're trying to help, and I know you're doing it out of the goodness of your heart, but you have to, so it kind of went right in line.
It can be a toxic relationship.
Yes.
With people who are toxic. And
Detrimental. It can be detrimental if you allow it too close, I think is the thing. Yeah.
And when you care enough, it's hard
and
not
she
to.
And she did. It was everybody. So.
Man. So, I love the videos. I just really, it was really touching. And getting to know the backstory of who Chelsie was as a person. And something that we talked about right before we went on air, as I was typing the description into this, I got about halfway through it and I asked you, I said, you've got to be damn tired of hearing your daughter described as the Twin Peaks waitress. And no knock on Twin Peaks.
Not at all, because Twin Peaks was good to her.
Yep. And it wouldn't matter if it was Twin Peaks, if it was anywhere. But not as Chelsie, but as fill in the blank, the Fortification Street murder,
right?
Or the Twin Peaks waitress,
right?
And I even did it, and that's when I caught myself. I'm like, I bet you're slap tired of hearing that, but I guess I do it to give people familiarity in case I didn't remember her name.
Sure.
Yeah,
so. and my answer to you was that it gets a little frustrating as a mother, but knowing that how things work, that I realize that that's kind of the tagline that needs to be attached. And I'm hoping that after this conversation, people will just say, Chelsie.
Yep. If y'all share this, we're going to start a new hashtag for Chelsie, and we're going to call it hashtag Chelsie Strong. And because I've got some stuff about Chelsie here that it was a little research I did, and and with what Mom has told me, I just think that is the appropriate way we should talk about Chelsie. It's not, again, no knock on the restaurant Twin Peaks or anything like that.
No, not at all.
This is a human being, with a family. And we should address her, and we should remember Chelsea's name, not what Chelsie did for a living.
Well, but I think part of it was part of her, because if you think about it, being behind the bar, when your people are smiling and you're entertaining and you're,
But she was actually a bartender.
She was a bartender. She was a bartender.
She got that on. She got that honestly, didn't she?
Yeah, she did. She did.
Most people know that I was in the bar business for a long time, and I was told the story as I was walking out to let you in. My parents owned Greats Camp in Pickens back in the day. It was a bar up in the middle of nowhere, and they used to change my diaper on the pool tables in there. Mm-hmm. And then when I had Crazy 8 out in Byram, I changed my daughter's diaper, on that pool table. And now she was up in here where we're at the other night till 4 o'clock in the morning. And I said, well, the apple doesn't fall far from the tree. And I say that to say, you have a bubbly, very outgoing personality, so it doesn't surprise me at all that your daughter was able to kind of use that and be a good bartender and a good people person.
But Chelsie was genuine.
Yeah.
And I think that's what made her a good bartender, is she loved having people to talk to and do and laugh and joke. And, she was just, some of her best friends are from Twin Peaks, and I think even the goofiness that used to go on behind the scenes, back in the kitchen, mm-hmm. things like that. She just had a good time. And I don't mean, party. She smiled her way through life.
Yeah.
That was probably the biggest thing. If anybody gets a takeaway from this, is that Chelsie just smiled her way through life, and she loved her way through life.
That's awesome.
So,
you know, you can always tell when you go somewhere if somebody's enjoying what they're doing,
yes.
or if they're just doing it
Yes.
as a means to an end.
Yes.
And everything I see and hear about Chelsie is she really loved life and loved what she was doing.
absolutely.
You know, and those are just things you can never take away from somebody.
No.
So before we dive deep into this, is there anything else that you want to let people know about Chelsie that may get lost in the chaos of the violent things that happen? You know,
I think just the only thing that I really want everybody to understand, in my eyes, and everybody who knew her, why this is so tragic, is because Chelsie loved everybody. Everybody. She always saw the good in everybody. She just, that was just her heart,
Yeah.
you know? So, having said that, I guess first I want to address parents like you, because you and I talked about this for months, probably 2 years. You know, I had told her, Chelsie, you've got to be aware of your surroundings. You've got to pay attention to what's going on around you. You know, be, you know, checking things out. Don't just be in your own little world. But of course, she was 23 years old, had, you know, the world by the tail. I mean, she had her hardships, but you know what I'm saying. And honestly, had she been paying attention that night, she might have seen them follow her, and she certainly would have seen, you know, them when he got out of the car and was at the window.
yeah.
So, having said that part of it, I guess right now, I guess I could say, so one question that I get, and I'm going to go ahead and address this now because of that, we don't know, or I don't know, whether he pulled out the gun. There were rumors that he tapped on the glass.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if that's what happened, or whether he, from the initial report, he tried to open the door and was saying, "Come on with it." I believe, my belief is that at that point Chelsie stomped on the gas in the car, and the gun possibly went off. I go back and forth, and I haven't really been able to settle. But at this point, you know, it's one of those things where you just kind of like, okay, it doesn't matter, because we know for a fact that when the boy approached the vehicle, the gun was already cocked.
Yeah.
So my reason for saying this is if there's just people out there, females traveling at night or in couple, like, you know, she was with a friend. This is the day and age where you have to pay attention. You just can't afford to not be aware of your surroundings.
Yeah, I mean, you know, still to this day, or more so this day than ever, if I pull up to a red light, I give myself enough room. Not to keep from getting hit if I get rear-ended, but to be able to go around and get out of a situation.
Yes.
Drive-throughs, anything like that. It's almost like a self-defense life course.
Right.
You know, you just got to be so aware of your surroundings, you know, especially in a city with the crime clip like Jackson, Mississippi has, you know, and late at night. You know, and you would think that Belhaven area on paper should be a pretty safe area, but compared to some of the other parts of Jackson anyway. And I mean, for that to happen there, just such a senseless act. It just, you know, I played it in my mind, and the first time we talked on the phone, I said, you know, I know exactly what they did. And this is before I'd actually gone and looked at some of the previous news stories. That they left that establishment. They went up West Street, turned right on Fortification, and they were facing east.
Yep.
You know, going back towards the interstate.
Yep.
And one of the things, I'm going to backtrack a little bit here to my Chelsie Strong thing. One of the things I started thinking about was the fact that she got shot at that intersection and drove almost all the way to Mississippi Sports Medicine and the Mexican restaurant there. Am I right? Almost all the way to the interstate?
She made it approximately halfway between that distance. I don't know.
Yeah, so probably about a quarter mile, I would guess.
About a quarter mile. And then she passed. And then the person in the vehicle had to commandeer the vehicle from the passenger side and was able to, bring it to a stop
there.
right at the guardrail where you would be getting on the on-ramp in front of the Mexican restaurant.
Wow. So that's basically, just going through my experience of driving through there, I would say that's probably a half mile. Well, between a quarter and a half mile from the intersection to the interstate there. Mm-hmm. And I may be off, but a good ways to have gone.
There's no way. I mean, I couldn't tell you exactly where she passed. All I can tell you is that she knew she was shot. She threw her phone to the passenger in the vehicle and said, call 911. And then the last thing she said was, I think I'm dying. So my daughter knew that she was shot, and she knew it was bad.
Yeah. Man, that's terrible.
But for her to have enough shit about her to step on the gas. Oh, she did make the comment somewhere in, and you gotta understand how quickly all this happened when you think about it. She went through the light, she went past Finian's, and then she got up somewhere on Fortification. But she made her first comment was, I can't feel my legs. So she couldn't feel. And so I'm assuming that her foot was caught
on the gas.
Well, not caught, but yes.
Yeah.
On the accelerator.
There's no feeling there. If
there's no feeling, there's no control.
Weight.
She has no control now over her legs. So again, that speaks to the passenger having to commandeer the vehicle to bring it to a stop. Yep. And not that it was any easy feat, because the passenger with her was smaller than Chelsie, and at that point Chelsie had slumped over.
Yeah, and I'm guessing Chelsea's car was an automatic.
Yes.
Which in that situation is terrible, because you can't just knock it out of gear.
Right.
So, well, God, it's terrible. I mean, I guess, at least they were able to get away. And at that point, and if this is too much, just let me know. At that point, did the people who shot her pursue them down there? Or
no.
They fled?
They fled.
Okay. That was a question I just personally had for a while, trying to play it in my mind. So, I guess it was because they fled that they weren't able to, instead of going down there and following through or whatever it is they were going to do.
Well, before we get into all that, you and I had kind of talked about let's start from the beginning.
Okay.
And again, this is something that you and I discussed. So if you go back to the beginning of this day, I got a phone call from Chelsie. She wanted me to go have lunch with her at my granddaughter's school.
Yeah.
But, she was spur of the moment, and I was like, I have no way of getting ready in time, So she ended up being late for that, because Chelsie was always late. Always late. So she ended up at her sister's house and had lunch with her sister on her lunch hour. So I had not spoke with her again. That night, when I got ready to go to bed, most nights, I guess every parent does, I took my phone to bed with me and put it on my nightstand. And for some reason, when I got up to go to bed that night, I was like, I'm not taking the phone, Got in bed and laid there, and I thought, no. Got up, went back and got my phone and brought it.
Yeah.
So I had been in bed about an hour.
And this was August 17th.
This was August 17th. Yep. I got the phone call somewhere around 12:15, I believe.
The time I came up with online that they assumed it happened was around 11:48. That seems to be
it was, yes. So I got the phone call around, like I said, it was like 12:15, and I had been laying in bed tossing and turning. And for some reason that night, I just couldn't get to that point, And I don't know if that was some kind of intuition thing or what.
You always hear about that motherly, just
yeah.
parental. You know something's
So
not right.
I don't know if that was it or not. So yes. So if we go from that point, at 12:15 approximately, I got a phone call from Brittany, and she's screaming, "Miss Stacey, Chelse's been shot." And
It takes a minute to register.
well, yeah, it does, but it for some reason it didn't even. I was just like, okay, where is she? I don't know. I said, what do you mean you don't know? I don't know. So I hung the phone up, and I tried to call Stevie's sister, and couldn't get them. Well, her husband worked at Madison PD. I actually had to call Madison PD to go to the house and wake them up. So I get her on the phone, and I'm like, start calling the hospitals. Your sister's been shot.
So Stevie's her sister.
Stevie's her sister.
Okay.
She lives in Madison, or lived in Madison at the time. So I get dressed, get in the car, and I start driving. And Stevie calls me back. She says she's not at Central and she's not at UMMC. Well, when you're coming from Brandon, the first hospital would be Baptist on Fortification. So I got on the off-ramp, and as soon as I started coming up, I could see all the blue lights. By the time I got over the interstate, I knew it was Chelsea's car. So I pulled over real quick, and they're hollering at me, "Ma'am, you can't be here, ma'am." I said, "That's my daughter's car. Where, what hospital is she in?" "That's my daughter's car. What hospital is she in?" And they just kept saying, "Ma'am, you can't be here. You've got to move your car. You've got to move your car." And so I was getting angry, because all I wanted was to go to the hospital. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah. I mean, you want to
because
be
I
with
think
her.
I think I did ask Brittany, "Is she alive?" I think I did ask Brittany, "Is she alive?" Because we were under the assumption that she was alive at that point. So finally, I had to move my car up some, and one of the detectives came in. Then I believe it was Tyree Jones, but don't quote me on that.
That's the name I found.
And
he did an interview, Tyree Jones.
Well, he came up to me and he said, "Miss Kirschten, you can't be here," or something. And again, it was the whole thing. Well, I had my son-in-law on the phone, and he's like, "Hang up the phone." And I'm like, "No, this is my son-in-law. He's a police officer." And I remember handing the phone to the detective, and he handed me back the phone, and he finally said, "Ma'am, your daughter's deceased." Okay.
And you're at the scene at that
I'm
point?
at the scene in my car, pulled over to the side. And it was, honestly, y'all, thinking about it now, it's almost like maybe I knew, because they wouldn't tell me what hospital she was in.
Were you by yourself?
I was by myself. So I remember an officer telling me, "We need to get you out of here because the media will be here soon." I did not realize that my daughter was still in her vehicle at that point. And as I was pulling away, I saw the coroner arriving. So, because I would have never left her there by herself, but they were not going to let me anywhere near the car.
Yeah.
And understandably so, but as a parent, I mean, most, and here's the thing, well, I'll address all that later, but, as a parent, you want to be able to be with your child.
Absolutely.
And you realize that, she's dead, but that's still your child. That's still her body. That's still what she walked this earth in.
Her vessel.
Her vessel that you loved, and so we went to the police station.
The police are driving you at this point.
No. I followed them.
In that, with that on your heart.
Yeah.
That's strong.
I mean, I'm.
You're a strong woman. I'm just trying to think. Just like my foot would have been shaking so bad, I would have probably rear-ended the cop car in front of me.
I don't know. I mean, you just do what you do.
Yeah.
You just do what you do. But at the same time, and here it comes, God's carried me through this.
Oh, yeah.
I don't take any credit, and I don't pretend that I was ever strong enough on my own to get through any of this. Like, that's just not, I'm so you can take that for what it's worth.
Amen. We are followers of the Lord on this page. In my house. So
I got to the police station, and the person that was with her, and mind you, the person that called me was not the person that was the passenger in the vehicle. So the person that was the passenger in the vehicle was there at the police station, and they sat there and they were covered in blood, and it was my daughter's blood. But they quickly whisked us into another room and asked us some questions, and then by that time I had gone outside. My daughter had gotten there from Madison. We went outside for a few minutes to try to collect ourselves, I remember. Then we went up, more questions, and then we were we left. And then one thing, I specifically asked them, please do not release her name until I can contact family members, because we're so spread out.
Yeah.
Okay. Well, we no sooner got from Jackson Police Station to my daughter's house in Madison, and my phone's ringing, and it's my son. No, I had called my son somewhere in all this, but he's calling me, and he's, Mom, it's all over the news. Well, Chelsie had a 90-year-old grandmother. So my daughter and I immediately got back in the car, because at that point, my niece in California, other family members in Missouri, people from Ohio, it had made nationwide.
Yeah.
And we specifically asked, please do not release her name. And to this day, I don't understand that, because there are recent murders that they have not released their names. Mm-hmm. But for some reason, Chelsea's name got released.
Yeah, there's recent
so
murders.
I had to go,
the murderers'
by
names.
now it's like 5 o'clock in the morning, I had to go wake her 90-year-old grandmother up. And she knew when she answered the door and her granddaughter and I were standing there that it was not good. And she immediately said, Chelsie, and I just had to literally grab her. Thankfully, she's 4'8", I think,
yeah,
and sit her down. And I was so angry because that, so basically, I guess what you could say is, from that point forward, from a victim standpoint, it's been rough.
Yeah, and then taking social media and everybody sharing that information, and it just turned into a gas on a fire.
Yeah,
yeah. Do you recall which news who released her name?
I don't.
Man.
And then when I asked about it later, I think somebody said, well, once it went out over the AP, Associated Press, that they could, and I was like, how does this even happen?
Yeah.
How does this even happen? So, and all I can tell y'all is, this is long. Settle in, grab your popcorn if that's, I know that sounds crude, but, after 3 years, people have been questioning me, and we've talked about that, wondering and saying things, and if this was my daughter, and blah, blah, blah. So this interview is specifically to give y'all a not a bird's eye view, but just from a parent's perspective in this seat, of what it's like to work yourself through the legal system emotionally as a victim, and legally as an advocate for the person that you lost.
And were you surprised to find out along the way, as an advocate, the roadblocks that you would hit?
Absolutely.
I mean, because in your mind, you just think you're the grieving mother of a child that's deceased, and people should just, at a human nature, understand that. But you hit a lot of resistance from people, and I mean, we brought up the town hall deal.
Yes.
And
yes.
We're jumping around just a little bit, but I do want to mention this. It was the town hall with
Adolfo Minka.
Yeah, well, I got it.
Mike Hurst.
Mike Hurst, thank you.
Town hall
with Mike Hurst, the U.S. attorney here, located here in Jackson.
Right.
and it was about Project Eject. Now, what is Project Eject?
Project Eject was something that they're working on, and they were trying to get public input, because there were certain things that, and I'm trying to go back, that they were considering and implementing, such as one of them I remember being that the once found guilty, that the perpetrator would not stay here in Jackson, that they would be moved to a different city, different area. Obviously, they had their reasonings for that, but it was just kind of things that they were considering in their effort, I think, to kind of disband or break up things that had been going on in Jackson. Because at that time in 2017, Chelsie, I believe, was number 37. But it seems like right after her, it was just bam, 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 and it didn't let up for like 8 or 9 months.
No, and it ended with 64.
Just that year. But if you went on past, so 37, August 17th, to how many?
37 from August 17th to 64.
64 murders just in a matter of 4 months.
Yep. And then in 2018, an additional 20. Into 2018 with 84 and 2019 with 82. Long story short, the gas pedal has been pushed down on violence in Jackson.
Yes.
You know?
Yes. It has accelerated at a speed that is totally abnormal. And I think, if I remember right, when I look back, that the murder rate had not been that high since like 93 or 94. If I remember that.
You're right. It's right in there. And I didn't write that exact year number down, but it was 93, 94, 94, 95, something like that. And let's see. In 2017, it was 35 out of every 100,000 residents in Jackson were murdered. So out of 200,000 residents, it was just a crazy statistic.
So let's put that in perspective. That's 35 families that have lost people that they loved.
Out of every 100,000 citizens.
Out of every 100,000. But even so, you just go back to that's 35 families that have lost, well, no, wait a minute. 64 families. 64 families. So you're saying 35.
Yeah. I'm sorry. This number
out of 100.
Out of 100.
But so I see what you did there.
It's kind of a percentage thing.
But I mean, okay, so even still, 64 families that just families that are now grieving somebody over senseless bullshit.
Yeah, or mother, brother, sister, cousin, somebody is no longer fathers.
Right.
So let's just say each family has 4 members. That's 4 times 64.
Exponentially,
And it just expands into grieving people, parentless children who maybe lost a parent.
Okay.
And so on and so forth.
So when you think about that in legal terms, and if you're thinking about it not just being murder cases, but carjackings and break-ins and rapes and, all your violent crime and everything else, the police department and the district attorney's office and all the courtrooms are just inundated. And you have the jail system, the county jail system. When you start thinking the effects on it, and everybody knows this, really, we're not saying anything new right now, Clay.
No, we're just...
Everybody knows this. So, but if you go back, like how it affected us, all of that happened, and, I can't help but think that in a way that did have an effect on Chelsea's case. I'm not going to say that it was a downfall but I think it's just something you need to be aware of.
Did Chelsie live in Jackson? Where was her apartment?
Chelsie lived actually in Ridgeland. She lived in a townhome over off of Pear Orchard Road.
Did her not being a Jackson resident, you feel like that complicated anything or moved it down? Felt like it moved it down the pecking order for the police?
No, and I'll be honest with you. From a police standpoint, I don't really know. From a standpoint, period, it was never spoken but I do think that there was, when I say never spoken, it was never spoken out loud. I mean, because at the time, but you know, obviously, God, I just hate to say that. It just,
No, you're fine.
you know,
Don't say
I
anything
think that it, because it was a white girl being killed, you know, that there was a lot of people that had questions there. But when it came to the interview, I mean, when it came to the investigation of the case, I think that people need to understand that that was not the important, you know, that was not the
most important part of the equation.
yeah, that was not the priority. At the time, the priority was, why did this happen? Because no, this doesn't happen in Jackson often.
Yeah.
I mean, if we're just really honest, normally it's a black on black crime. So I think that, you know, that had a lot of people, and it got a lot of people pissed off and feathers ruffled and, you know, this, that, and the other. But, you know, at the same time, I think people ought to be doing that about every murder that happens in Jackson or happens in your area.
Well, there's not a whole lot.
So I think there was a shock value. Yeah. I think that's the best way to explain it, is there was a shock value there.
You know, and in Jackson, in the defense of Jackson, with that maybe being, if it had been a 23-year-old beautiful young black girl, the outrage would have probably been equal. We don't get that many
But that's
young,
what I'm saying.
girls.
But the shock value of yes.
You know, so we don't want to be taken out of context here.
No.
It's usually male
because this
on male
interview
crime.
is for everybody.
Yep.
Everybody.
Yep.
Anybody that wants to hear it. Anybody that wants to listen.
Yep. You know, so we just want to be clear there, and it's the shock value of a young female going into the peak of her life, you know, and having it so violently taken away, just out doing what any other person her age is out doing on a. What day of the week?
It's a Thursday night.
It was a Thursday, yeah. Yep. So it would have been ladies' night down there, and so I saw the video. They pull up. They don't go in. They don't actually get out of the car.
They never went in.
Yeah.
They never went in. They got almost there. They turned around, went back to the vehicle, got in the vehicle, drove off, and in the meantime, these three were laying in wait. In fact, I can't remember now, but there might have been, no, they were laying in wait. They thought that one of them made the comment that they were coming out of the club, they thought they were drunk, so they basically assumed that they were an easy target, which unfortunately, because the girls were not paying attention, they were an easy target. But yes, they followed them, and their intent was to rob them at the corner of West Street and Fortification.
Before she turned.
Right. But if I had to guess, Chelsie did not. She made that, what do you call it, stop?
That rolling stop.
That rolling stop at that intersection and went on by. So once they got up to the red light at State Street and Fortification, Chelsie was in the lane going straight, and they pulled up to the turn lane next to them.
Yeah, if you had gone left on State, the Baptist would be on your left.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
So just to kind of paint a picture of everybody where we're at here, and you know, you go straight there, and Fenians would be on your right, the old Jitney Jungle on Fortification is on your left, and the Mexican restaurant would be up at the end. So just paint a picture for everybody to know exactly where Chelsie was, and I'm guessing they parked back just a little.
I'll be honest with you, I was never really clear exactly where they were parked, but I believe it was on the side, like if you have West Street here, George Street here, and then I want to say Congress. I think they had parked on Congress and walked.
And we're just creeping the damn place out, just waiting.
Right.
So to be clear, because there's been rumors and innuendo and speculation by Facebook detectives that there was some kind of connection between Chelsie and the girl with her and these people, and there was not. This was a random. It was just an unfortunate luck of the draw.
Yes. There was a lot of talk, a lot of speculation, especially regarding the person that was in the vehicle with her. there was a lot of ugly rumors, you know, but in the initial interrogations and on the witness stand, all of them stated they did not know the girls.
And when you say all of them, you're referring to
Coates, Dixon, and Paige.
These are the people.
Each one of them individually stated in their interview and on the stand under oath that this was an attempted robbery.
Yeah.
Now, I fully believe this was an attempted carjacking / robbery, but there was nothing to prove that. And this is important. Had they been able to prove for a fact that it would have been a carjacking, then Mike Hurst would have gotten this case.
Yeah, and it would be a whole
And
different
Mike
scenario.
Hurst spoke with me on several occasions on the phone and in person. They were watching the case, and had there been any little thing that they could have, they were there ready to take over.
So what? For us folks that don't know, what would be the difference in it being an attempted robbery and a murder versus an attempted carjacking and a murder that would make it go to the federal level?
Because it would have been 2 felony crimes being committed within the same.
So the robbery wouldn't have been considered a felony?
The armed robbery. I don't, okay, see, this is where my stuff gets fuzzy because but basically the carjacking, I guess it would have taken the carjacking and the murder because whatever. I honestly, right now, my brain is like going 90 to nothing.
I got you. And it's not necessarily important to any of it, but it is curious why
but this is a good time to point out that things that seem so obvious to us, lay people, the general public, things that would seem obvious to us, you have to realize that it's a court of law and it has to be proven.
Yeah.
I might know it in my gut, but if I can't prove it, then, and there's a reason why our laws are set up the way they are, because then you have the other side of people unlawfully jailed for years in their life, unlawfully killed, so it's a checks and balances system. But at the end of the day, it's it's up to, you have to prove your case.
Yeah. So it's almost impossible to prove the carjacking unless one of the other guys said, yeah, we were going to carjack, and somewhere along the way a good attorney figured out that they had a better chance of going with robbery and a murder in the robbery, in process of the robbery.
Right.
So if we can prove that this happened versus this, even though it just feels like semantics, whether it was a robbery or a carjacking, you were still stealing something that wasn't yours, and somebody died at your hands. Or
exactly.
What semantics as far as how we got
so
to
that's
that
kind of how they would have gotten to the federal level, because a carjacking is a federal offense or whatever, however you want to put it, and then because there was a capital murder committed while trying to execute that carjacking, then that put it in a different court system.
So I learned something new here today. I understood what a capital murder was and how that works and how you got to the death penalty, but I guess the level of the crime that you're committing in the process has to be to a certain level to get you there.
Right.
That makes a lot more sense for me. So that answers a big question just that I personally had about So let me see here. So when the shooting happened, you said it took about a week to 10 days to get the first 2 arrested.
Well, the shooting happened, and in that first week, they were obviously retracing, going through, going over, but, there were people that were not being upfront and honest and lying at that stage of the investigation. And they were lying to cover their own dirt that they were whatever. And so it kind of clouded what was really going on.
Sure.
You know, so it looked like it was commingled. You know, it was just kind of this in together. There was no lead, honestly, until Mississippi Sports Medicine added the $2,500 to the Crime Stoppers and upped it to $5,000. Then all of a sudden, a week later, because it was $5,000 out there dangling, somebody decides to open their mouth.
Yeah. So I'm really
now, don't get me wrong. I'm glad that person was greedy.
Yeah.
And right now, I mean, the motivation behind it, you would think that they knew and they would have stepped the hell up. And this is one point I want to make about the community, the people that live in the community, the people that live by the code to keep your mouth shut. So nothing can be done to help you if you don't open your mouth and be a part of the solution and not the problem. Because it's just like lying. If I lie to you by omission, it's the same as lying to your face.
Yeah.
So, you know, this is something that the community, I mean, you know, if we're just going to be honest in this talk here, the biggest frustration I have is that if you know something, tell it.
Yeah. So, you know, you bring up a great point. In the inner city community, where there's tons and tons of violence, and there's this no snitch culture, you know, well, what if you're able to get, if you snitching, we'll call it what it is, you know, assisting, and you get somebody, a potential killer, off the street. It may not have been Chelsie this time. It could have been your mother, brother, sister. I mean, they were going to rob somebody that night.
Right.
Know? And which one of them had been out of jail for 30 days?
Jushun Paige.
Paige had just gotten out of jail for 1 month to the day.
1 month to the day.
For carjacking.
Well, it was a carjacking or an armed robbery that was reduced down to robbery. He spent 3 years of a 10-year sentence in jail. 30 days from the date that he was released, he was involved in Chelsea's murder. But before we want to go any further, I want to bring up the flip side of something that you and I just said.
Yeah.
It's going to take people talking, but that's easy for people who don't live in the environment that some of these people live in. Sure. And they're fearful to open their mouths, and rightfully so.
Absolutely.
But, you know, the Crime Stoppers, that to this day, they don't know who made that. That when the Crime Stopper system works by a number system. So there's no names involved.
How do they get their money?
You know, that I never asked, but it's all done anonymously.
Interesting.
Because at that point, had that person not stepped up and said, ooh, I want this money, who knows where we have been? We might not have had anybody even go to jail at all. It could have been one of those cases that just is out there and not solved. And you know, we talked about family members that are people that are murdered that the family doesn't even know where they're at. We talked about, you know, things like that they have nothing to go on. No body, no nothing.
And do you feel like you at least have some closure?
I feel like, and it's the craziest thing, I've said this for the 3 years, as bad as Chelsea's murder was, I feel like we were one of the lucky ones.
Yeah.
I really do. She wasn't raped. She wasn't sex trafficked. You know, she wasn't tortured. Yeah. You know, I mean, when you think about all of this, when you think on the scale of, okay, it's bad, but it could have been really bad.
Oh, like the girl up in North Mississippi who...
Yes, and that trial had just gone on. That was another, the Jessica, I can't think of her last name.
Little blonde set on fire,
yes,
rape.
Yes. So that trial had just gone to court, or case had just gone to trial right before us. And something that I want to make everybody understand too, that when all this was going on, we were in an election year. So you had DAs up for, you know, the DA position was open. You had several judges. You had a couple of judges retiring. I mean, so, you know, there's all this intermingled. But when you're just talking about where we were at, you know, it all makes a difference.
The Jessica Chambers.
The Jessica Chambers, yes. Thank you, whoever that was.
So this started out with Judge Wheel, am I saying that correct? And ended up with Judge Wooten.
Okay, so that's another thing. People are under the assumption that it's one case and it goes before one judge, and that's not correct. The way the legal system worked is you have these cases and they're each assigned to a judge/courtroom. Mm-hmm. So within that courtroom, you have assistant district attorneys that are assigned to that courtroom. So this was not, now I believe at one point we made a motion to have them all tried together as one trial, and it was denied, I think. But so that's the first misconception, is like people don't understand that it's kind of the luck of the draw thing. It's not like, oh, I want Judge Wheel to hear this and I want, no, you have to go with how the system is set up. Mm-hmm. So that means basically, we were working with a large legal team within the DA's office, but at the end of the day, it was 3 separate trials, court, whatever you want to call it.
Yeah, sure. It's 3 completely different.
Right. But I want to go back before we get too far into this.
Well, these are those rabbit holes we talked about.
Yes. And y'all, there's going to be a lot of rabbit holes. And y'all will just have to forgive me. It's been 3 years. I think I've tried to block a lot of this out. But at the same time, it just, there's so many things to talk about and cover. And that's why, if you're here listening, I appreciate it. And if you're here listening, I hope that I can give you information, give you a better understanding about how all this works. I mean, that's why I'm here.
And I'm not a trained interviewer. This was just something that God put on my heart to want to talk about. And, just as a parent, as a citizen.
So let's go back, because I think people want the juicy, whatever. So what came about, okay, so JPD was trying to investigate the case. They were able to untangle to a certain extent and enough to say that the one issue had nothing to do with the other. Well, again, like I said, you had people lying to the police investigators in the first damn week. You had people who...
These are people that knew Chelsie, correct?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
That's what we're saying here. This is people that were friends with Chelsie that could have helped our acquaintances.
Yes. These were people who were friends of Chelsea's, and they were lying to the police,
trying to protect themselves or somebody they knew.
Yes, trying to protect themselves or somebody that they knew
on unrelated stuff. But they were just
on unrelated stuff. But it clouded up the investigation. So valuable time that could have been used, because JPD was short-staffed, valuable time that could have been used towards the real investigation was eaten up with this bullshit.
Yeah.
And if they'd have just come forward and said, hey, blah, 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 but no. And as a parent and as a person who knew these people, I can't tell you how angry that made me.
I can't
like,
even imagine.
Angry does not even touch the feelings that I had.
Yeah.
So, now we get into the investigation. Well, they were investigating, they were doing their thing. But then, so the first hiccup, I guess you could say, was the lead investigator got suspended. He got suspended trying to arrest Jushun Paige because 2 of them were already in jail. But Jushun Paige, he was hiding out, nobody saying nothing. And they finally got him. The other 2 weren't saying crap about, but one of the, like I said, the lead investigator got suspended for an altercation that happened in the process of trying to arrest Jushun Paige with someone else. I was never told of this. All of a sudden, I can't get the investigator on the phone, don't have a clue what's going on. So that kind of starts. The initial question that Clay asked me was, where was the breakdown? And I think you and I talked about where was the breakdown. So I want everybody to be clear that the breakdown wasn't one big, chop it screwed the whole case up. It was things that happened along the way that, you know,
death by 1,000 paper cuts. It just one wrong thing, turned into one big thing.
well, or you could even say even if it wasn't a wrong thing and it was a change that you had to readjust. Well, life's full of changes, but when you're talking about something like this, it makes a difference.
Sure.
So the quick version of this would be, okay, so now the lead investigator is not the same person who started out. I can't remember what was next, but throughout the course you had a new ADA come in.
Yep.
We had judges changed out. We had the ADA who was working on the case that actually went to trial 2 weeks before the trial had moved to another courtroom. Now, so now the ADA that's having to, you know, take charge. Now, luckily, she had sat in on most of the meetings, but still, all in all, it's like you and I. If you've got grandmother's recipe for potato salad, and I'm over here with, you know, Aunt Lulu's potato salad recipe, you might do yours completely different. And it's the same way when a lawyer is preparing for a case. Each attorney prepares differently.
So why did that happen? Did the ADAs get changed?
It
just feels like there'd be some
we had
responsibility to that case. Let them see it through.
No, we had the new judges came in.
Yeah.
So Judge Will, so there was new judges that came in.
Mm-hmm.
So, you know, at this point, you can't, and that's what I'm trying to say. It's like you get so mad and you feel like no justice has been served and you feel like whatever and you just want to blame something.
Yeah.
But sometimes shit just happens.
Yeah. You know,
shit just happens.
I read a quote from your son that after and I'm jumping around here a little bit, you just made me think about it. I read a quote from your son after one of the trials where I think it was where they got the 5 years or whatnot. And he says, you know, I'm disappointed, but I still feel like justice was served because at least we got a trial. At least, you know, we went through this. Is it the end result that we wanted? No. But
okay, so let me stop you because I was talking to another mother on my way over here. She still has not gone to trial. Her trial is just hanging because they told her, and her son was killed before mine, or before my daughter. Her son was killed before my daughter, and they're telling her that they don't feel like they have enough evidence. Well, again, there's two ways to look at that. Would you rather them go to trial and not have a whole lot of evidence and risk losing, or would you rather wait it out? But at the same time, it's hell on a family.
It is.
It is hell on a family.
And that's a question that nobody in these comments can answer unless you've been through it. So I'm not gonna try. You just don't want to put yourself in that, because it's easy to say take them to trial, take their ass to trial.
Right.
You know, but then you also have the other part of you've got a potential killer still out roaming the streets. You know, that could kill again, and that there's so much involved in that.
And there really is. There really is. And again, you have to stay within the legal parameters. It all seems so easy. Oh, well, they tried to kill her. Well, yeah, you know, and in our case, you came out with the craziest, you know, here's the driver doing 40 years. He got 10 suspended, but he will do day for day 30 years.
Yeah.
But then the two people that could possibly have shot her got off with, you know, the conspiracy to commit robbery.
Coates got the 40 years for the driver.
Yes.
And he said that, if my notes are right, Coates said that Dixon was the shooter, correct?
Uh-huh.
And then, but of course, Dixon says Paige was the shooter.
Yep.
So
here we go on that merry-go-round.
Yeah. So let me ask this, you know, just as a simpleton sitting here, if Coates now says, sitting there with his 30 years day for day as the driver, when one of the other two clearly were the shooter, and he's pointed out, he's fingered the shooter, does he not have a case to get out of jail? I mean, or to get his sentence? I mean, was his bargain down from capital murder or something? Was there a reason for him to take that plea versus theirs?
I can't remember, honestly, because I was trying to remember that.
If you can read my terrible writing.
Well, I believe that we did. I believe, if I'm correct, and oh Lord, y'all, please don't hold me to this. Please don't hold me to this. But I believe that we agreed to the plea in exchange for his testimony.
Yeah, because I'm glad he got the time he did. I mean, I don't feel like he got a bad deal.
His testimony, and let me clear this up, folks. This is a perfect time. I believe that's how that happened, but I could be wrong on some of this. But let me just go on and tell you, as far as Coates goes, Coates comes in. He knows he's supposed to testify. A week before the trial, he gets a new attorney. And his new attorney is from out of town. And his new attorney says, no, we're not testifying. Okay. You know, he's already taken the deal. He's supposed to be testifying. And then they're saying, no, we're not going to do that. We're down to the wire. The freaking night before the trial, all of a sudden he decides he's not going to take the case. He's not going to be Paige's new attorney. And so now we're left with the DA's office had no time to talk to him, no time to go over things with him, no time to discuss, you know, any of the things that needed to be discussed.
What their expectations are, questioning. And
well, you know, when you say that, when you say what their expectations are, their expectation is for you to get up and allocute exactly what you did before, what you said before.
Gotcha.
And he got up there and was so unintelligible, you could not understand a word he was saying on that stand, because obviously he had had a change of heart. He did not want to be there. But what you going to do? You got the testimony that you got, and quite frankly, it was crap. Yeah. It was crap testimony. So just to tell you how that little deal went down and not right. But I mean, there you are in the courtroom. You can't change. I mean, it's like, you know, once you committed to something, you know, you're kind of there.
Yeah. And so he ends up with 40 years, 10 suspended. Mm-hmm. As the admitted driver.
Uh-huh.
And everybody accepted the fact that one of the other two, Dixon or Paige, are the shooter.
Right.
And then they end up pleading. What was their final charge? That they plead to this 5-year time served suspended. 5 years with time served. So that puts them both getting out. I think in 2022 without any early release.
No. Because, in Dixon's case, he had already been in jail, I want to say, right at 2 years.
Yeah.
So, when we went to court last August, he had, like I said, been in jail for 2 years. The sentence carried 5 years. Well, from what I'm understanding, and I'm not, you know, again, people trying to get a straight answer, everybody says something different, but from what I understand, MDOC is the one who determines how much time he actually spends in custody.
Really?
So, he was released. The family was not notified. I believe it was in January.
Yep.
So, if you look at it, it's right at 2.5 years of a 5-year sentence. So, they counted the time he had been in jail before he went to trial.
Gotcha.
That, you know, was put towards his 5 years.
Yep. So, and that happened under, so what I found, and it was Judge Skinner that it was handling. It was Judge.
Was handling what?
So the release, the one when y'all weren't notified.
Oh, okay, well, no, because that's two different things.
Gotcha, okay.
Two different things. We were not notified about Dixon having served his time and released after the trial. The incident that you're talking about is when Nicholaus Coates was released from the Raymond Detention Center before they had been indicted.
Yeah, that was it.
And that goes into a whole nother thing about...
And y'all weren't notified about that either.
We were not notified, but nobody was notified. JPD was not notified. The DA's office was not notified. The family members were not notified.
Yeah. So...
And he was let out, and I'm gonna say this, and from what I understand, allegedly, trying to cover my butt here, but allegedly at the same time he was released, there was like 5 or 6 other people who were charged, if I remember correctly, allegedly with murder that nobody knew about. In Hines County Jail just let them go.
And these are other murders, not tied to Chelsea.
Yes,
other
these are
separate murders.
Separate.
Yeah. So just released on the street. And so first thing I think about is, so gets released before the indictment. The family's not notified. But this guy could very easily go out and kill the family, try to kill somebody.
You think?
I mean, that's
you think?
Yeah, I mean, I think the track record says this dude very well could go out and try to seek revenge.
So let's talk about that a little bit. Judge Skinner set bond, and for some reason on the order for Nicholaus Coates, he changed it, because when you're on a capital murder charge or something, y'all, this is taking my brain, it's straining me, but
take your time.
If I remember correctly, he was not supposed to have been out at all, but for some reason, the particular order that Judge Skinner did for Nicholaus Coates had a time limit on it.
January 2nd.
But, okay, so I don't think the other two had that.
Yeah.
It was just his.
That's what you told me.
So this was the big sticking point for the DA's office. He was released. Nobody was contacted. When he should not have been released because of the charge, because it was a capital murder charge.
Yeah.
Now, when we got to questioning, and you have to go to, so Judge Skinner had been out of town that weekend. He says, well, he's released. This is no longer in my jurisdiction, is what Judge Skinner's reply was. So now you go to the senior court judge, which is Judge Green. Judge Green.
Tommy Green?
Yes. I'm assuming, I didn't talk to her, so, but the reply basically was, you didn't indict them by this certain time, so we released them per the order of Judge Skinner. I'm assuming that's the ground she was standing on. I never talked to her. I never heard the conversation, so let's make that clear. I am saying allegedly that's what was being said, was being told to me. So then you got into this back and forth with the DA's office and Judge Green. And my opinion is that Chelsea's case was used to make a point. Okay? Because let's not forget that the DA's position was open, blah, blah, blah. I don't think there was a whole lot of love lost there. So where it gets important is, so now the DA's office petitioned Judge Green, who is the senior court judge, to pick him up and have him put back in jail. And she wouldn't do it. She was standing on that this was, that they had gone by the letter of the law. Well, here's the crazy part. And this was what the DA's office was standing on, is that Judge Green had a standing order that nobody would be released without coming back before her for a hearing. And the DA was supposed to be present. Well, that hearing never happened. And that was Judge Green's own standing order.
So it went against her own standing order by him being released.
So then, instead of picking him back up out of jail, they pushed the DA for an indictment, to take it before the grand jury so then there was a lot of back and forth stuff that supposedly and allegedly everything that she was in fact trying to set the court date for the grand jury, and she had no jurisdiction over that. Okay? Then in the meantime, she goes and files something and has the file closed. She has the file sealed. Whatever it was she filed at that point, she had that sealed. So now we're in
limbo,
well,
purgatory, more like it.
no, yeah, but it's more than that but you have to understand that they were fighting for legal precedence, and this was what the DA's office had been telling people the whole time he was in office, was that this is the kind of crap he was up against.
And which DA was this?
This was Robert Smith Schuler.
Okay.
It's Robert Schuler Smith.
Robert
I'm
Schuler
sorry,
Smith,
Robert.
Yep.
So eventually they did go ahead and indict them, and that's how he was picked back up. So again, there's another piece of what was the breaking point? Well, that certainly didn't help things.
No.
So in the meantime, then we filed something, and I can't remember the name of it. We filed it with the Supreme Court because we wanted this recognized as a
precedent.
Well, precedent or whatever, but just we wanted some acknowledgement and recognition that, hey, this wasn't supposed to happen. And we didn't get that. The Supreme, and see, here's the other thing, is normally when you present something to the Supreme Court, they normally come back with an answer, and they answer you with the specific whatever law, statute that their answer is based on. We got crickets. So your Mississippi Supreme Court, there you go.
And do you remember
So wait,
about the timeline
so the
that
family
was?
went back and filed something.
His family?
Our
Your
family.
Okay.
Crickets. Crickets. Crickets, crickets, crickets.
There's nothing.
So now you've got the agencies battling each other, which I guess in a way that's what they're supposed to do. But I think y'all can start to see this is part of the point of this whole interview, is how the system is not working.
No, the system broke. And for both sides. I can understand from a criminal justice standpoint why there would be a deadline put on an indictment, as far as you can't just hold people forever.
Right.
And I totally understand that as just a human being. But from your point of view, you're like, we have this, indict. He does not.
Well,
need to be back out on the
but
streets.
that was another thing is, there's time limits to everything. There's time limits that you have to file this, and time limits that you had to file that. And I heard that the DA's office was past the time limits, and they weren't doing this and they weren't doing that. But if I remember correctly, it took a minute for the DA's office to get the police investigation report from the police department. And I want to go back and say that, and this is, I did an interview on the news earlier this week, and I said that the investigation was lacking. So when I said that, like, when the guys were arrested, they never confiscated their cell phones, which would have told half the story right there.
Hell yeah, they could have pinged the GPS and put them on the
Right.
location.
Now let's go back to, because somebody waited a week to collect that money before they said anything, the boys were in a rental vehicle.
Yeah.
Well, by that time, the rental vehicle had been turned in, had been cleaned, and rented out again. So any evidence that you had there. But then, in one of the boys' testimony, he says, we went here to go gamble. We were here, so-and-so was here, my cousin was here, blah, 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 blah. To this day, I don't think anybody went back and talked, because it was never mentioned to me. And again, I sat in on a bunch of meetings.
Sure.
And that was never discussed. So when I say, and part of me wants to say, okay, they were overworked, because they still are. But at the same time, that's crucial evidence in my mind. Now, maybe they didn't investigate it because it was not going to be anything useful from a legal standpoint. But as a parent, you're not trying to worry about the legal standpoint at that moment. You're trying to get a complete picture of how and why my child is dead.
Yeah, put this puzzle together and paint a better picture.
Yes,
yeah.
yes. So the official story, let me stop right here and go on and tell everybody. This was not a drug deal. This was not her ripping off a drug dealer. Do I need to look over here?
No,
I
we're
mean,
good. We're good.
Y'all, It really was. These boys were out gambling. They had lost their money. They decided that they were going to go rob somebody so that they could continue to gamble.
Yeah.
That's why my daughter's dead. There's no, out of all the conspiracy theories about that it was a hit and the hit was intended for the person that was in the car with her, the DA's office went back and reinvestigated every line of that they could, and they came back because I wanted to know the truth about my daughter's death. You know, it wouldn't have made a difference to me if she'd have been, you know,
it don't matter.
It didn't matter what she was doing. Let's just say she had been out there ripping off drug dealers. I don't give a damn. She was my daughter. I loved her. But, you know, a parent, you want to know the truth. It's something about making peace inside yourself. And, you know, in something like this, you're not going to have a total peace. But there are things that will stand out to you. And Tangela, I hope you're watching, baby. I hope you're watching this right now because I think of you. There's things that are important to you that mean nothing to nobody else. But by God, you want to know.
Yeah.
Like, what was my daughter's last words? You know, because as a parent, I'm thinking, okay, she was scared. Was she calling out for me? What was her last thoughts? I mean, you want to know these things, but you'll never, you know, there's some things you'll never get answers for. So I am thankful that the DA's office and the people that were working on her case, and y'all know who you are, and you know I love y'all dearly, they were bound and determined to get as many of those answers for me as possible.
Yeah, and I want to say something, but she just said that right there. Y'all know me, I'm quick to jump on these politicians and these police around here that don't do their jobs. 5 minutes into our first conversation, she was real quick with that same attitude to correct me and let me know that the ball was not necessarily dropped by the DA's office or by JPD. It was just things happened and misinformation early on and stuff like that made it hard. But you're not unhappy. That's a terrible way to say it. You're as satisfied as you can be with the way the DA played this out, and they were helpful to you. And
well, let's distinguish first the DA and the DA's office.
Yeah.
Okay. Personally, under Robert, and under all the attorney, the ADAs and the investigator, I had access to all the meetings that I needed, all the meetings that I wanted. If there was something that came up, they would call me and they said, hey, can you be here? We had meeting upon meeting upon meeting. I had a phone. All I had to do was pick up the phone. Robert answered that phone call every time.
Yeah. Every
time. Okay? So, but still there is a distinguishment because I think people look at the DA as an entity, and it is. It's a public office, so it is an entity. But that entity is made up of people.
Yeah.
So, am I happy with the way everything was handled? Hell no. No. You know, but if I had to sit here and say it's all their fault, it's all their fault, it's all their fault, I'd be telling a lie. I'd be telling a damn lie. You know?
Because you were involved and you saw how hard work that was put in by X amount of people.
Oh, hours and hours. Let me tell you. The one attorney that ended up not, presenting at trial, y'all, she had 2 stacks of legal pads like this, 2 stacks this tall. Just a legal pad. We're not talking folders and, legal,
binders.
The legal documents and stuff. I'm talking about notes. 2 stacks of it, huge stacks. So I knew she was doing her work. And the thing is, she knew that case knew it.
Yeah.
It wasn't like something she said, oh, let me go check my notes. 90% of the time, if I asked her something, she could tell me without having to look at one of them. She was living and eating and breathing this mess, as the rest of the team was. I'm not going to discount, as the rest of the team was. But at the end of the day, The physical evidence was not there.
Yeah.
So everybody wants to know about the cameras. I don't know if I think they've been defunct for years. I did not know that. But there's a camera on each top of the red lights at that intersection. So that's 4. You have 4 businesses at the corner. You have Walgreens. You have
McDonald's, the gas station.
well, wait, hang on. Okay, so if I go Walgreens where she was at, Baptist here, McDonald's here, and then I think it's Wingstop.
Well, it's a gas station, a little tiny gas station.
And then Wingstop.
And then Wingstop.
Okay. So either they did not have a camera in that business, or the one camera that would have caught everything, the Baptist camera, had been hit the week before and taken out by lightning.
You know, and the cameras that were on top of the red lights, I believe those were the traffic cameras that people sued to have disconnected.
Yes, I heard that.
You know,
I heard that.
Because those were the ones that would catch people if they drove through, get their tag, and send them a ticket, and people sued on. I believe it was a civil rights violation. So, you know, just more just cutting off nose to spite faces.
Right. So again, this just reiterates the point that I'm trying to say is that, you know, it was just one of those things, y'all. It was just one of those things.
Yeah.
Nothing that couldn't be helped. Maybe at this point, maybe it would be good to see if anybody has a question. Have you been? Because I can't see. My blind butt can't see.
No, you're fine. So there's several hundred comments, but let's start here. Anybody that's watching, do y'all have any particular question that you have? Let me tell you this though. A lot of people are just amazed at how strong you've been. and I saw my mother chime in. I've seen people that know you chime in. Just amazed that one girl said she's so pissed off she had to get on her exercise bike to burn energy off.
Trust
right
me,
now.
I know the feeling.
Just watching this has got her so mad. Okay, well, while we're waiting on a question, we skipped over something, and that's on me. Again, I'm not a trained interviewer. I'm just a damn parent who cares.
Well, we agreed that this was just going to be a talk,
Yep.
and we were going to just try to, as much as we could. And there's going to be stuff that I forget, y'all. There's going to be probably points that I want to make that. So if something's not connecting the dots, say something, because that might be what I'm forgetting. But right now my brain is in search mode for what's important and what do I need to tell them and what, you know.
And she may get home and go through these comments and answer some of your questions personally.
Absolutely. You know, absolutely, if I can.
So don't forget that. And there may be a part 2 to this. You know, I want to go back to the Project Eject fiasco, the town hall.
Yep.
And because we skipped around there, this was Mike Hurst, the U.S. attorney based out of Jackson here.
Right, and before we get that far, were you able to find the full reel?
I couldn't.
There's a full reel out there.
Yep. So if anybody can find that, there's a snippet of it on the Jackson Jambalaya page. And shout out to Kingfish.
Yes, yes.
I want to give a big props to Kingfish because other people have commented to me and said, man, Clay, thank you for keeping this alive. Like, I didn't. I jumped in here. Thank Kingfish at Jackson Jambalaya sent me this link the other night, and it really pissed me off and got me fired up. Kingfish has been on top of this, you know, like it was a family member of his own. So
he really has. He has covered this every step of the way. He has covered this.
He has. He's the most consistent. When you go Google Chelsea's name, 90% of the stories are Kingfish over Jackson Jambalaya. So I just want to get that out there.
And that's the other funny part is that the television networks, you know, they of course they did the interview, and Patrice Clark did a really good interview with me in the beginning, and then but it was funny because some of the police stations, some of the TV stations weren't interested. I sent out a message saying that I was going to be doing an interview because I was going to try to knock them all out at one time, and only one person showed up, and that was Patrice Clark, and I really appreciate that part of it.
Yeah.
Now that was back more when it was kind of a, you know, grieving mother kind of thing. But nevertheless, it was an important interview. Then I did an interview with Katie Rowe, and I believe she was with Channel 12 at the time. And I did an interview, and that was at the point that Coates had been released from the detention center. And I was mad, y'all. I was fire mad. And it aired But now all of a sudden, that video is non-existent.
Been scrubbed from the internet.
When I was very angry. I was speaking specifically to the Judge Green situation and him being released, and that video is no longer there. Don't know what happened to it.
If it's out there, the internet will find it. I'll
find it for me, folks.
I will put some details out there and in a separate post and see if people can come up with it.
Yeah.
So here's a great question, and I thought about this too. Courtney Baggett asked, I would like to know who it was that called and told Brittany about it. So how did
the passenger in the car
called Brittany, and Brittany
called
Brittany,
and Brittany called me.
Gotcha. And did the passenger in the car, and we're going to avoid saying her name because we don't want to get hemmed up in anything unless you want to say her name, but did she not have your number? Or I mean, I don't have too many of my friends' parents' numbers.
Well,
so I'm trying to put myself in that
here's
situation.
the thing. She used Chelsea's phone to call 911. And if I'm not mistaken, and Brittany, oh Lord, baby, if you were out there watching, I believe she used Chelsea's phone to call Brittany.
Gotcha. So she could have easily typed in mom and most likely found your.
Okay, so let's talk about that. Let's go there. Let's go there, y'all. You are two girls at a red light. You look up, all you see is a gun in the window. Mm-hmm. Okay, the shot goes off. The car is filled with smoke. The car is vibrating from the shot into an enclosed area. You don't know what the hell's going on. Now think of the panic and the what's the word I'm
disarray.
looking for? Well, just the
your ears are ringing from.
Your ears are ringing. Your just everything. Now Chelsie stomps on the gas. I forget where I was going with this. What was I? Oh, the disassociation, all that. And so it's real easy to say what you would have done, Just like I've heard, well, let me finish with this thought. When you're in that situation, you don't know what the hell you do. There's one of your best friends, childhood friend from 3 and 4 years old, and this person is throwing a phone at you saying, call 911, I've been shot. And then the further you get down the road, she says, I can't feel my legs. I can't feel my legs. And the last thing she says to you is, I think I'm dying. You don't know what the hell you do. I'm sorry, y'all, but that pisses me off. Yes, I'm angry about some things. Yes, things I think could have been handled differently, and I wonder why they weren't handled differently. But if you put yourself in that person's shoes, you don't know. There's no way in hell you'd know.
No, it's easy for all of us to sit here.
I keep looking at that, and I'm trying to read,
okay.
but here's the thing. She made the phone call. Brittany called me. Do I question things sometimes? I sure do. But I had to quit questioning that because it would have ate me alive.
And I'm guessing that at the end of the day, it doesn't change anything. It's not going to bring her back.
Well, okay. Yes and no.
Okay.
This family and our family had been friends for years. And Chelsie was literally like a member of their family. She went on vacations with them, like I said, from 3 and 4 years old. I just want y'all to know, we have not spoken since. That hurts me.
You lose a daughter.
It pisses me off, and it hurts me.
Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I'm not the one who had to deal with, I don't imagine that there were a whole lot of peaceful. Let me back up. I can't imagine having to live with that image in my head.
Yeah.
Okay. I'm not gonna lie. There's some ill feelings there still, that they have not reached out. The first week they reached out, and then as things progressed, I did go to their home and speak to them one time. I did. I went to their home and spoke to them. Have not heard from them since. Now, some of their family did show up for the trial, was very supportive, was very loving, as I know this person, these people are.
Was she called as a witness?
She was called as a witness.
Okay.
She was called as a witness.
Gotcha. You know, so again.
But she only had to testify one day. These family members continued to come to court throughout the course of the trial, and that meant a lot to me. Now, I did not speak to them. My son spoke to them, and because these are people that are just the most loving people, caring people, gentle people, truly genuine, gentle people. So, you know, there you go. Was it Courtney? Does that answer your question at all?
I think that definitely, because I had the same question, so I'm going to speak for her and say that I would say it absolutely answers it. And I guess, and so the anger towards that goes back to the sitting on information or misinformation, trying to kind of protect yourself, whatever your boyfriend may be involved in, and by you I mean her, and her boyfriend may have been involved in that.
Well, I wasn't going to go there, but
I think it's like the elephant in the room. I think most people assume that, and we don't have to talk about it if you don't want to.
I'm going to say this. The passenger in the car was, you know, there were things being said, and like I said, at the end of the day, I asked the DA's office to investigate. They did. JPD investigated and found there was nothing associated with the passenger in the car that correlated with this whole incident and Chelsea's death. Unfortunately, there were people linked to the passenger in the car, whatever, that I understand allegedly were doing things that, you know, most likely they didn't want to be found out.
Gotcha. We'll leave it at that, because you start peeling back too much, and you know, it gets into hearsay and slander.
Well, I don't want to do the hearsay. I don't want to do the slander. Yeah. I don't want to just sit here and, you know, my purpose is not to just call somebody out, but I can't tell this whole story without addressing that part of it.
Oh, sure. Well, it was a big part. And
it was a big part.
And look, I like.
Well, it was a big part for me.
Oh yeah, well, it was a big part for what the information the public was digesting in this, and the way it was used to somehow, I don't want to say
dirty Chelsea. It was used to skew the image and the character of Chelsea.
Yeah, and when you say it like that, it really pisses me off.
That's what pisses me off.
And because I consider myself, contrary to some of my crazy videos and my personality, I consider myself pretty level-headed when it comes to digesting realistic information on what I see online and being able to paint my own picture of maybe how somebody was, what happened. And even I said, well, I guess that makes sense. 2 little young girls down there, you know. And then you open your eyes and you read deeper past the headline, past the Facebook post, and you get to know people. And, you know, and it makes me feel like an asshole for ever even thinking it. But I feel like I'm probably not alone there. I feel like people heard that, and given the situation and the circumstances, like, oh yeah, well that can make sense.
Well, and something that just came to my mind, and I don't know, this is totally there, but y'all have to understand something too. At the moment that at the time, the first week that was being investigated and suspected or whatever, that's not the right word, but you know, I didn't even know, because the first week the family was sequestered out in Madison. There was no TV, no radio. I wasn't on Facebook. My son came to me and he said, Mom, don't get on Facebook. Just don't do it. Because this is when all this was coming out. I mean, my child had just been murdered. All this was coming out. I you know, and then finally, so I actually didn't know about all of this until a week later after her funeral. Then I was told, you know, we're looking into this. we suspect this. I can confirm that at one point, the police did say to me that they thought that the bullet might have been meant for the passenger. I can confirm that because I was told that.
Gotcha.
So I had just put my daughter in the ground, and then I'm faced with this.
And I'd heard from a law
Now
enforcement
my
source the same
mind,
thing.
now my mind is ba 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 ba.
Sure.
You know.
And at this point, was it radio silence from that camp?
Yes.
And it's just and as I've gotten older, I've learned that when you don't talk to somebody and communicate, the imagination can run as wild as it needs to.
You can create monsters in your head.
Oh, absolutely.
You can take things as the public seem to do, and spin it in so many different ways. An honest conversation would have gone a long way at that point.
Yeah, no doubt about it. No doubt about it.
Yeah.
You know, and that's why I wanted to do this, was to give you an opportunity to get here and have an honest conversation and get it out there and let people hear, because it's fresh, you know. So why would the bullet have been meant for the passenger? Well, the assumption
Morgan
is...
Honeycutt!
So the assumption is that there was some illegal activity going on, and well, I'll just say it because I'm not. Whoever the passenger was, I don't know her name. Don't want to know it. Y'all don't.
I have not disclosed that. I have not disclosed that.
Let me just say, the assumption was that the passenger and her boyfriend at the time had been involved in buying some drugs and had shorted the shooters. That was the public assumption. So that's what people ran wild with.
Wait.
And-
So I'm sorry. I was.
No, you're fine. The story that I had heard through internet rumors, and I think is where most people, and I've seen people comment on it since my original video, is that the assumption was that the passenger and I guess her boyfriend at some point had shorted these guys, or the passenger had shorted these guys some money buying some cocaine, and that they were shooting at her.
Well, see, and so that I had not even heard that one.
Yeah.
But that tells you how everything gets so convoluted, because I had been told that Chelsie and the person with her had ripped off a drug dealer at the car wash down the street. Well, you know, folks, the majority out there that know her, or even if you just have a brain, who in the hell rips off a drug dealer at one block and then drives up a block up the street and stops at a freaking red light? Let's think about this.
Yeah. And
I mean, honestly, would you? Come on, people.
Yeah, and your story's the same as mine. That's probably a better version of what I'd heard.
Well,
It's
that
been a
was
while.
one. And then the other one was, again, that bullet was meant for the passenger.
Yeah.
I never got an explanation. And so, like I said, the DA's office did to the best of their ability. Again, they found no anything to connect the passenger, Chelsie, other people that were suspected to be involved, and the 3 defendants. There was nothing there. Now, y'all might know something. Somebody out there might know something. But I'm going to tell you right now, if you know something, the time to step up was way back when. Because now I'm going to lay my head down at night, and I'm going to know that this was nothing. And that's how I find my peace.
Yeah.
Because the one thing that I asked them was, I want to know the truth surrounding my daughter's death.
Yep.
So, if you know something, I better not see it on this I'm telling you, I better not see it on here right now.
No.
Because it's too late. You should have stepped up and said something. If you have proof and you know of anything different, you should have stepped up and said something.
You're a terrible person if you know something.
See, this makes me mad, because somewhere somebody's going to say, I know for a fact, blah, 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 blah. Well, if you knew for a fact, you should have jumped up there and got that $5,000.
Yep. I'm going to lean on the side of the police had no reason, if there was true evidence there, to not follow that.
No, and it didn't take them about a week and, well, okay, so like I said, that comment was made to me the day after we buried Chelsie. So that was on a Friday because her brother was fixing to have to go back home. Within the next week, he was saying, and he told me, I can tell you your daughter was not involved in anything.
Yeah.
You know, he genuinely, and this is the same investigator who got suspended, but he knew how important that was to me.
Yeah.
And he honestly looked me in the eye and told me that bullet, you know, that Chelsie had nothing to do with that.
Yeah.
This is not true. You can lay your head down. But I kept on and kept on. And again, the DA's office spent a lot of time, a lot of interviews, just to reassure me and to double check and make sure. So it was investigated twice, people, twice.
Clay, can you ask what the text was if she's willing to speak of it? Ashley, which text are you referring to? Not quite following that question, Ashley.
Ashley, baby, what are you talking about?
The people saying the text. I don't remember speaking of a text.
Yeah, what text? I'm not getting that. Jonathan Ray, the text. What are y'all talking about, the text? What do you mean, what did the text say? There was no text. There was, I got a phone call. Carolyn Peavy, Brittany Adams asked. Bless her heart, light up that second one. Brittany said to ask about that text. Barbara, I'll light up a whole bunch, baby.
Okay, I guess Brittany must have texted somewhere the text from the passenger. I guess the passenger texted Brittany. Maybe that's what they're saying.
Brittany, hang on, baby. Okay, hang on.
The text that was sent to Brittany from the passenger.
Baby, you got to give me more than that.
While she was being interviewed.
Oh, so Brittany received a text from the passenger talking about come get me.
From the scene.
From the police department.
Gotcha. That night.
That night. And she was talking about how whoever was up there didn't know what they were doing. This was after, I'm assuming this is after the person who was with her had been, talked to and they questioned and everything. She was ready to go home.
Yeah.
She was ready to go home, and so she had texted Brittany. Brittany, am I right? Brittany, is that what you're asking? Carolyn, I see you, baby, but I need to talk to Britt. I need to see Brittany.
Brittany, is that what we're referring to? She texts Brittany here to come get her from the police station.
Yes.
And this is
because her car was at Chelse's house.
And this is running on a short lag.
Right. So anyhow, her car was at Chelse's house, so she was stuck there. Well, I had fully intended on giving her a ride home.
Yeah.
But when Stevie and I got out of talking to the investigator,
Brittany says yes, ma'am.
Okay, so when Stevie and I got out from talking to the investigator, she was gone.
Gotcha.
She had already left.
And gone to get her car, or whatever she went to go do.
Right.
Go home.
Right.
Yeah.
Right.
I mean, all the nonsense aside, she'd had a really bad night.
She'd had a bad night, yeah. I mean, I can be, yeah. But, so, like I said, things...
And how old was she?
I want to say she was a year, so she was 22.
22.
Because she was a year younger than Chelse.
I want everybody to take a deep breath and put yourself back into 22, 23-year-old you.
Yeah, definitely.
Not 40-something-year-old grizzled, seen the worst of life you, but 22-year-old you. And imagine that unfolding in front of you. I mean, I'm 42 years old, and I've seen a lot of stuff, and I've never had a friend shot beside me at a red light. So, or murdered beside me.
Keely, they did, baby. That's how they got their first tip. That's how they knew who to pick up.
So that was the first tip.
Right.
Was the best tip.
Right.
That's rare.
Right.
You know.
Otherwise, we might not have had anything.
Yep.
See, I need people to understand that. For as angry as I am that somebody didn't step up for the right reason, at least they were stepped up for that money, because had that not happened, we might not know to this point what happened, who killed Chad. And that goes back to me saying, you know, yeah, we've had some shitty breaks in this thing, but had Mississippi Sports Medicine not stepped up and added that $2,500, then we might not have ever had the first lead.
And I was just going to come back to Mississippi Sports Medicine and say, wow, what a great business. They just did my shoulder surgery. And,
did they?
Yeah, and just did my mom's knee surgery, my uncle-in-law's, I guess that's what he would be called, my uncle-in-law's knee surgery. But where did they get involved? Is it because it happened in the proximity of them, or was there a connection to Mississippi Sports Medicine?
No, it was simply because it had happened right there, like in front of them. Mississippi Sports Medicine is here, and I think the restaurant's there, or is it the other way around? It's the other way around. It's the other way around.
Towards the interstate, Sports Medicine's here, Mexican restaurant's here, interstate's here.
Okay, so yeah, because it was right there in front of those there, you know. And I'm so thankful for them.
Absolutely.
I'm so thankful for them.
I need to pay my bill to them now. Just thinking about it. What a great, and that just goes back to supporting local businesses. And that's something that this page is really big on, is we support local businesses and stuff. And I don't want to tie this back around to business, but how awesome of a great local business. Brittany Adams said the passenger text. Okay, so we're a little behind here. Look at comments from Brittany. Okay, so here's Brittany. While she was being interviewed, I guess we got way off here.
Go back up. Mm-hmm. I mean, go back up.
This way.
Okay. So yes, all three of her kids are so lucky. What is that?
So I think that had came from up here. So okay, Stacey, Chelsea was so lucky to have you as a mom. We love you. That was from Michelle Womack, and they were saying that all three of your kids were lucky to have you as a mother.
Thank you, guys, because, growing up, if everybody remembers, those who knew Chelsea and Stevie, I was not known as the nice mama. I was not the June Cleaver, come here, baby, let me give you a brownie and a cup, no, that was not me.
No, you grow into it. We don't come with manuals. I know it's a generic saying, but it's so true.
No, and Chelsea was strong-willed. She was, whoo.
So how old are your other kids?
You had
roughly
to ask me that. Stevie, are you 31 this year?
So is Stevie the oldest?
No, Michael would be the oldest. I believe Michael's going to be 34 in September. Is that right? Yes.
So she really
34.
was the baby.
She was a baby.
By a good 5-6 years.
Yep.
Or so.
Well,
she'd be 26 now. Her birthday was April.
That's so. I've said it before, but to hear it coming out of your mouth when I was looking at you when that said that, it just was like, oh.
April 24th.
Yeah.
And it's so weird seeing 1994 here, because I got my driver's license in '92, so I always equate people's age to how long I've been driving. Mm-hmm. And she was born 2 years out, so I was 17 when she was born.
Yeah.
And it just blows my mind.
So, what else?
Michael's 33.
Michael's 30. Yeah, he'll be 34 this year.
So, Stevie's 31.
Yeah.
So and y'all give her a break here. She is bearing her soul. So remember numbers off the top of her head. I bet you learned more about the justice system than you ever thought you would.
Oh my gosh! Because growing up, everybody was always like, "You should be a lawyer. You should be a lawyer." And I'm like, no. But now I'm beginning to. But let's talk about that for a second. The attorneys that get up every morning and show up for this quagmire of shit. Mm-hmm. I'm going to say the attorneys that worked in the DA's office that I met, they earned their money.
Yeah.
Now, you might have some that are just showing up for a paycheck, but the ones that I met, that I worked with.
And these aren't the attorneys. The attorneys get a bad rep, too. These aren't the attorneys that are out here suing people for every little thing in the world. These are attorneys that are fighting.
These are attorneys that aren't making the, big bucks. They're on salary as a public servant, trying to get justice for people like me and other mothers.
Yeah.
Other families, and can you imagine day after day after day of being immersed just like a police officer and in the lowest of the lowest of the low every damn day,
and being hit with mortar shells by family members who is the most important thing in the world to them is justice for their deceased loved one. Mm-hmm. And you've got to find the balance of the work to do the job, the time invested, the emotional investment in that, as well as handling the emotional investment, whether you signed up for it or not, that the family puts on you, of wanting to know. I mean, it's a lot. That's a lot that I think people don't think about. It's like, oh, you're a damn lawyer, and there's, or a DA, and I guess a DA is a lawyer and stuff, and these police, what they do. We live in this crazy, screwed up time where everybody thinks all the cops are bad people. Right?
No.
And defunding the cops. Let me tell you, this defunding the cops nonsense, this is what happens in Jackson, Mississippi when you defund police. You get stuff like this. And I'm not going to make this a political thing, but that just really made me think about that. And we need to be supportive of our police and be grateful for the good ones that are out there helping situations like this, helping families in these situations. Well, Candace, we're not going to discuss who the passenger was.
Where? I didn't see that.
She had asked you. I was going to ask who the passenger was. I guess a couple people had asked. So we're not going to discuss who the passenger was. I'm sure that information's out there somewhere. We're just not going to put it on this page.
Yeah, because keep in mind, people, this is not a, this is, I'm trying to tell you to the best of my ability. I didn't come on here to just burn folks. Mm-mm. Are my feelings hurt? Am I pissed off about some shit that happened? You damn straight I am. But that's not what this is all about. This is to give y'all a complete, as best I can, if y'all were hoping for the juicy tell-all, I don't know. Best I can tell you is, I'm just not going to go places that just absolutely hurt people, nor put myself in a position to set myself up for some kind of legal ramification.
Yeah. And there's just no point in it.
There's no point in it. There's not.
So I want to backtrack just a little bit. Somebody had asked, where she got shot. I'm assuming you're referring to the location. Somebody came in late. It was on the corner of Fortification and State Street in downtown Jackson. And if you're referring to where she physically was shot, it was between the shoulder area and the upper back?
She was shot approximately right here. Gotcha. Because she was leaned over the console to get away from the gun.
So the shot came in lower at another angle than
that's the crazy part that I've questioned. The car is however tall a G6 is. Yeah. She was known for her Pontiac G-6. Mm-hmm. Trust me. The shot went in towards the top of the window. And this is the one question that haunts me. Because if you think about it, you've got somebody, let's just say the gun is here and she's leaned down. How did the bullet go through the window, down, and then up? Which would have been forward. Now, the autopsy report reads that it entered, traveled upward, went left to right in the lung area and nicked, I believe it was her heart. Or the bottom lobe, and then it hit a left lobe or something. I can't remember. It hit her lungs. It hit her lungs. The only explanation that I did get from everybody was that once a bullet goes through, like a piece of glass or something, the trajectory changes. Sure. Yada yada yada.
And it did break the glass. So they
know it
went through the glass.
It went through the glass. Yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But you would think at the point where the gun, where the bullet went in the window, you would have actually thought she would have been hit in the head area.
Gotcha.
So it was very strange to me. Had the entry hole been lower on the window, I could have understood it. Because there was no, it's not like there was a ricochet. There was nothing on the interior of her car to say that the bullet ricocheted.
Yeah.
So that was another question that I was a little ill that we weren't able to get a solid answer on.
So they do an autopsy, I guess, at the state medical lab.
Oh, so there you go. Judge Wheel had to force the doctor that performed the autopsy to finish the report, and we were waiting for it when we went to court with Dixon. So then we got a half-ass autopsy report. Okay?
Yeah.
That could have worked against us legally if the defense would have not accepted, I think it was, the autopsy report that we had.
Gotcha.
But thankfully, he understood, because the doctor had ended up living out of state at this point. And if y'all remember right, we had no people in there, and we still have that problem. And they have how many bodies, not just because of the Rona, but there was bodies on top. I mean, you have cases that are 3 and 4 years old still waiting on an autopsy report.
And, in the Hinds County, the people that
But
work in
Judge
Hinds County
Wheel,
have
one of the
walked
last
out.
things Judge Wheel did was basically say, if you don't get this autopsy report to me, you're going to be picked up for contempt or whatever. I don't know.
Yeah.
Allegedly.
Yeah, allegedly. Sounds good. If I was judge, that's what I would
So
say.
there you go. So, I mean, there's a whole, so are y'all starting to see how it wasn't one thing? It was this and this and this and this and this.
Yeah. And then it's a trickle down into other families.
Yes.
And you spoke of having talked to another victim's family on the way here. And I suppose they're supposed to be watching this, and we want to open up this channel to people to let you know that people still care in the city.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I want y'all to know people still care. It ain't all you see on the news. I'm not WLBT, and I'm just using them as an example. I'm not the Clarion Ledger. I'm not any of these things, but I'm a dude that gives a damn. And we're going to give people a platform to tell their stories, and hopefully we can move the needle. Hopefully y'all guys are going to move the needle more than anything I can do. I'm just going to kind of be the voice of the voiceless here. You've got to start voting for the right people. You've got to get these do-nothing-ass judges out of here. This lady doesn't even live in Hinds County, and fought to get some new judges here that would protect future families. These are things that we got to do. So get off my high horse there.
All right, wait a minute. There was a lady who asked something, but I couldn't.
So were they hooting and hollering at them, give me all your stuff, or did the bullet just come from nowhere? And
one of the defendants' testimony, Barbara, said that they were that they said, "Come on with it." I don't know if it was yelling, and I don't remember them saying it was said more than once or twice. So I don't know. No. So I don't know. I mean, I can only answer you the best I know. I don't think that they were yelling, because the person in the vehicle stated that she just looked up and they were there. That there was a figure. You have to remember that she didn't see a face.
Yeah, so they just basically pulled up and shot. The girls didn't even know they were being robbed.
Well, I mean, like I said, you're sitting at the red light,
Yeah.
You're two girls, you're talking, the music's going, you're laughing, you're joking, and then all of a sudden there's a gun in your window, in your face, and you think about it. If somebody, okay, if this is the top of the car, and I'm just saying, folks, I'm almost 5'7", so if the top of the car is, did you say there would be a fair,
This would be
a
the roof
fair
of the car.
thing? Well, if I'm this close and the gun's here, you don't see the face.
Mm-mm.
You see this,
You see
but
torso.
you don't see the face. So, I don't know if y'all could see what I was doing, but I mean, think
Yep.
about it.
You're in there,
You're
dude.
not seeing my face.
So do they think that she punched the gas, then he shot, or
I
shot,
never.
then
They
punched
can't.
the
They
gas?
can't. I believe that she saw the gun and punched the gas. That's what I believe.
That feels like human instinct. That's
yes.
what I think
yes.
most of us would
Yes.
do.
Yes. The other theory that had been traveling again around was that he had tapped on the glass, and the gun went off.
Well, you know, he tapped on the glass and pulled the trigger. It didn't just go off.
Well, the gun was cocked.
Yeah.
We
So
know
it was
the
a
gun was cocked as he approached the car.
So it was a revolver.
Yes.
And they never.
And I
found
don't
the
know
gun,
enough
right?
about guns to say no, they never had the gun. So see, that's the thing. There was not a lot of physical evidence, especially when it came to the third guy, Jushun Paige. There was, we could put him in the vehicle, but from the time he was picked up to the time he went to court, he never said one word, not one word other than, I'm not saying nothing.
Yeah. He rode the code all the way down.
He rode the code all the way down.
I guess if you look at the end result, based on what they did, I guess it worked out for him. Sadly. It sets a terrible, terrible precedent of if you can go do whatever the hell you want, if you just keep your mouth shut, no matter how much evidence they have short of the gun, with your fingerprints on it, or a video,
Right.
That's terrible.
So I guess my question at this point, y'all, is we're about halfway through the actual journey. Do I need to continue, or have y'all just kind of gotten tired, bored? I mean,
Well,
because Clay and I can sit here and talk about this all day long, but if I'm not helping y'all, if I'm not giving y'all, something.
no, I think we have done a lot today, and I almost feel like if we keep going and do a 3-4 hour deal, we do it in injustice and we kind of lose people. I think
That's kind of what I was thinking.
I think we can land this plane. I want to go back to one thing that we keep skipping over because we get going down a rabbit hole. I want to land this plane with going back to the Project Eject meeting because I don't want to let this guy off the hook.
Okay.
Now, this blew my mind.
I need to light another cigarette for this one, don't I?
You probably do. So, in your Project Eject meeting, there's this group of idiots, I guess, that had been to every Project Eject meeting and just harassing folks. I'm going to do my research on them. But what blew my mind was that the public defender, one of the guys from the public defender's office,
Adolfo
Minka, was up there badgering you and standing
He was
up.
not badgering me. He was yelling at me as I was trying to speak.
So what was he mad about?
That I had the audacity to talk about keeping criminals in jail.
And this guy works for the Jackson Free Press now. I just want to put that out there.
I don't know. Well, is he still a public defender?
I could not
A
confirm
public
that.
defender, folks. Public defender.
For Hinds County.
Showed up for Hinds County, showed up at this meeting. Now, I saw a comment when you posted that where a woman said something about how she could see my heart breaking. I just want to tell you, no, that is not what you saw. What you saw was somebody that was so damn angry. And in one shot, you can see my eyes are bulging out of my head. I kept my cool. I'm proud of myself. And the reason was I had attended that meeting with a candidate that was running in Hinds County that I was supporting. And I was not going to cause a big scene. I was not going to embarrass her. I was not going to address him the way I would have normally addressed him had I been there on my own. What you saw when I took a breath was me telling myself, sit down, Stacey, keep your mouth shut. This isn't the time or place.
Yeah. If that don't just tell you.
Told me that basically my daughter's death didn't mean shit.
Yeah, let's let people out. This is a singer who's written countless articles about defunding the police, actually abolishing the police. Just you can Google him or go to the Jackson Free Press.
I think he's taken his Facebook page down. I'm not sure.
Yeah, he's still on Twitter.
He's still on Twitter.
Yeah,
See, I'm not a Twitter person.
You can.
So.
Well, I didn't look.
I don't know how to
I googled him, and this is
twit
what came
and
up
tweet
on
and all that.
first page. But y'all can look up Adolfo Minka, and make your own decisions.
And the reason why that's important is because y'all have to see for yourselves the attitude coming from other people. There are sectors of people that are just so far freaking out there. Like at that meeting, he was talking about, or something I read on his Facebook page, it came out talking about, why are you getting mad if somebody breaks into your house and takes your TV? Why are you getting mad? You should be offering them this, and you should be. And I'm like, have you lost your damn mind?
I can answer that question. Yes.
You know.
Yes, you can. You know, and that's that mentality, and we talked about this extreme subset of Jackson, Mississippi residents.
Yes, don't get it twisted.
Yeah.
Don't get it twisted, y'all. This is a subculture, a subset of just low life crap.
You know that their business is being professional victims and playing this social justice card, and it doesn't get us anywhere. But revoke his license. You know, and he may very well not be. Like I said, I didn't have time.
I guarantee
to dig
you,
into
he didn't even get. I'm sorry, y'all. I'm trying
That's
to read.
fine.
But, you know, he didn't even get a hand slap from his boss. He got totally, completely away with that. Now, I do believe they got shut down at the next town hall meeting. I think they did get shut down, if I remember right.
I just got back into really paying attention to everything going on around here after just working and dealing with life. And over the last couple of years, I've really reinserted myself into the Jackson nonsense. So I'm digging up and learning some things that have happened in my mental absence. Mm-hmm. And cause when we shut the last club down, I just really unplugged from Jackson. Mm-hmm. You know, I was like, oh, I'm just sick of it. I don't even want to hear the word Jackson. Mm-hmm. Started back working here again and became reinterested. You know, and so that's how we find ourselves here. And I'm seeing these things like what Adolfo Minka did and what happened with Chelsie. And it's just a laundry list of snowballing nonsense. And I'm not, how do I say this? I don't think far enough ahead to tell y'all where this is all going.
Well, I can
but
tell
I can
you
assure
that
you it's going somewhere.
There's a couple of topics that we haven't really hit on yet because there's obviously more to this story. But I also, at some point, Clay, my intention would be to hit on the victim's rights angle from this.
Yeah, and you know, and I want to know, and I'm sure the people do, because you probably want to go home and digest all this. And I feel like a fire has been, if you needed more of a fire, I feel like a fire has been letting you get to talk publicly like this.
Sure,
and,
but you know, people. Let me make this clear. You know, if I'm not doing any good, then there's no. You know, I certainly don't want to keep coming up here and talking about stuff that y'all, you know, really don't have an interest in. I guess is what I'm saying.
Well, I think you've done a great job, and you're very strong. And I think you've given people. And there's several people on here, and I'm gonna get back to all of it who have said they've lost a child recently to violence.
I'm so sorry, y'all. I'm so sorry. I don't mean that. I know that pain. I know that just you can't even take a breath some days.
And they're thankful for you. They are finding strength in what you've gotten up here saying, and they're seeing that it's not just them. And I think sometimes that's very important. I haven't lost anybody to violence like that, but I feel like it's very important to know that you're not alone.
It's a club that you never want to belong to.
Sure.
It's a club that you never want to belong to.
Yep. You know, and I tagged Stacey in this post here. I'm sure she's welcome to y'all reaching out to her directly. Send her a message, whatever. She'll go through these comments, and I want to end with this. I wrote it down here. I want to end with this and give you an opportunity to just, you know, now that you've seen how bad it is here. If you could wave a magic wand and fix one thing outside of bringing Chelsie back, what would it be in this area? Like if you could eliminate, streamline one thing to make it easier as a victim, as a victim's family, you know, what would it be?
You mean on a broad stroke or more
if I could eliminate this one bit of red tape that would have made bringing Chelsea's killers to justice easier, what do you think it would have been? And I know that's kind of an open-ended question there, but just after listening, that's kind of on my mind.
It's like you have to go through the process.
Yeah.
That legal process at the end of the day is there to protect everybody. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of like there is no shortcut.
Yeah.
Once you've been thrown into this game, you can't stop. You have to play it through.
And even though we know it's broken.
And it's going to take people like me, people like other mothers that I know, families to go through the system, to go through it, to speak out. And this is why Clay has been so important, because there's not a lot of platforms where victims' families can do that.
Yeah.
And reach a broad audience and try to get y'all to understand that it's not just, oh, well, he killed her, or oh, they killed her, because you have to keep in mind, what's that old saying, y'all? Arrest them all and let the judge sort it out. Mm-hmm. Well, how would you like to be accused of something that you didn't do, and because everybody felt you were guilty, there goes your life.
It takes a very strong person to have gone what you've gone through and still be able to see it, that there is a flip side to this, that there's always the person that didn't do it that gets publicly accused and drugged through it. So, even more respect to you for that.
Well, at the end of the day, and I suspect that we're going to have another conversation.
I can't imagine us not.
But at the end of the day, you can say this, that, the other, but you would have to be 100% in your heart. I know this one pulled the trigger. This one deserves capital murder without a shadow of a doubt. This one did it. And unfortunately, in the position that we were in, we could not say that. So how do I lay my head down at night? For me, it's a personal decision. It's a personal choice.
Yeah. You found.
I have to find peace somewhere. And if I knew that somebody had got found guilty and it wasn't them, or there was a reasonable doubt.
Yeah. And then you have a whole other family disrupted by the absence of a family
then
member.
it perpetuates.
It does, and there's a lot of that, and that stuff that I'm hoping with the stuff that the president signed, the justice reform, criminal justice reform, and stuff that people can find ways to not be so. I'm kind of losing my train of thought here, but we're getting criminal justice reform, and we need it, And if people are in jail for something they didn't do, or they've been in jail for too long for something they should have never been in jail for too long for, getting released. But people who are committing violent crimes and murders, and we know that damn well did it, don't need to be getting off with 5 years time served. It's broken both ways. And I know I kind of got a little off track there, but
no, it really does speak directly to it, because again, y'all, it's not black and white. It's not just, oh, this is easy, he's guilty, throw him away, execute him, whatever you want to say. It doesn't work. Some murder cases there are, some crimes there are, but you can't. It just one solution does not fit all the scenarios. Yeah. It doesn't.
Yep. Ashley asking they ask questions for the next interview. Just stay tuned to when we announce another one. We haven't got that far ahead, and you're welcome. We'll let people submit questions.
Yeah,
next time.
Ashley, do go ahead and submit some questions, and like I said, Clay and I'll get together and we'll talk about some of this. I guess the main thing that I wanted y'all to take away from this particular meeting is that don't let this dim Chelsea's light and what she brought to this world, because that's exactly what I don't want. I don't want her to be remembered as the girl that got murdered at the red light. I want her to be remembered for that loving, vibrant, just unbelievable soul that she was. And if y'all can want to do anything for me, that's what I need y'all to do.
Amen. Amen.
Yeah.
Well, we're going to thank you, Stacey.
You're welcome. Thank you for giving me the opportunity, and we need to thank
the
the establishment.
Look, y'all may have been wondering from the background where we're at, and some of you may know. We want to thank the crew at Pops Around the Corner, and that may seem like an odd place to do an interview, but if you know me, you know this is right up my wheelhouse. The Pops crew, Josh, Jimmy, Kristen, everybody here, they reached out to us, let us come and set up. They're trying to get the place ready to open. We're over here in a corner downstairs. So grateful. It was a nice in-between place. We had a couple other places that reached out. So thankful for them too. We're gonna move this thing around, hit up different places, but this is where we're at today. So again, thank you to Pops Around the Corner. Y'all know me, I'm gonna support these bars and nightclubs no matter how. No matter what Tate Reeves is gonna try to do to shut them down, I'm gonna be here to support them. But so if y'all out and about, you need a beer, stop by Pops.
Yes.
It's popping at Pops.
We really appreciate what they've done for us today.
I mean, they came in here, cleaned up on their day off or in the middle of the day, got here early, cut the air on. Y'all know air conditioning ain't free. So we appreciate it. Much respect. Thank you to everybody at Pops. And we're going to, again.
And y'all come back. We'll talk more.
Yeah. This was an icebreaker. This is the first time we've been in a room together. So you never know how these things are going to go. So there'll be a million things that we think that we want to talk about.
Thank you, Karen. Thank you.
Yep. All right.
Love you too, Laney Bell.
Y'all be sure to share this and use that hashtag Chelsea Strong. And we're going to quit referring to her as the Twin Peaks waitress.
Yep, this is the last time she will ever be called that.
Yep. So we did that so y'all would know who we were talking about in case the name slipped your mind. But moving forward, this is Chelsea Strong. So
there you go.
All right. Peace out. Y'all have a great weekend. Stay safe out there.
Thanks, y'all.